I was one of those. I remember them trying to give me $1 million loan. I was like, that's stupid.
They were just throwing money at me.
But I knew better.
Right. So you didn't.
I know money.
Right.
I
You didn't take more than you could
Heck
handle.
no.
Yeah.
I was like, there's no way. And I remember signing the first piece of paper, and they were like, okay, this is a variable interest rate. And I said, what's the worst case scenario? And they said 9%. I said, I need you to put the worst case scenario with this, principal amount. What is it going to be?
Right.
I said, okay, I can still handle that. All right, moving on.
From Fiore Communications, it's How I Got Here, a show of inspiring stories from Tallahassee area leaders, business owners, and neighbors, all the challenges, opportunities, inspirations, the twists and turns of life that led them to where they are today. Everyone has a story worth telling, and I am really grateful that we get to bring a few of them to you. I truly have been changed by my conversations with these amazing people, and I'm confident you will be too. I'm Dave Fiore. In this episode, I speak with Ely Rosario, business manager at Jackson Properties. Ely's story is one of rising above circumstances and obstacles to achieve her dreams, no matter how unlikely they seemed at the time. After getting pregnant during her senior year at Lincoln High School, she was told her life was over. She not only finished high school as a mom, but went on to FSU and later earned an MBA. Ely says she was often caught in the middle of racial divides that had little room for Latinos. During one period, she was homeless, jobless, and carless, but soon after pieced together enough funds to purchase multiple homes while making less than $40,000 a year. Ely is a triathlete, has qualified for the Boston Marathon, and is a popular author and speaker. But most important to her, she is a very proud mom of 3 who makes very clear that they remain her priority. We began our conversation talking about life growing up in Puerto Rico.
There was a time that we lived by the beach, and I think that time really had an impact in my life. Till this day, my grandma, my brother, and I would, come home from school. My grandma would take care of us when my mom was working, and we would eat, we would watch the news, and then we would go on a walk on the beach for like 2 hours, and then we come back and watch novelas. And then whenever the novelas were done at 9 o'clock.
Soap operas. Is that
I
what
know,
you're talking about? Okay,
soap operas.
Okay.
They're so different than the ones here, though.
Yeah.
We watched the novelas and, of course, do our homework, but we were pretty young, elementary school. And then we would sit in the balcony and watch the stars and and read and just listen to the waves because we were really right there. I mean, we lived in a condo right by the ocean, and that was impactful. And then we moved to a house that kind of was more inland, like in the Rio Piedras, basically. So I went from Isla Verde to Rio Piedras, and then it was more like city life, right? Like you're walking everywhere. I would walk to school, and then you get to hang out with your friends in the neighborhood and that kind of stuff.
How old were you when you moved?
4th grade, so whatever that was. But I mean, living by the beach was just...
Did you miss it when you moved away?
I did, and I still do. I miss the water.
Florida has a lot of beaches.
I know, and sadly enough, I have not gone to the beach this year just yet. I have 2 trips coming, but I'm going.
Right. So I'm curious, when you grow up in Puerto Rico, how do you balance your heritage as a Puerto Rican and also you're an American? So how do those 2 things play together?
Ooh, you are going.
We're going right in there.
Like, I got the goosebumps. That was hard when I came to. So when I came to the United States, we went to Tampa first,
okay.
And I was there for about 10 months. There was a little bit more diversity there, but still a very big contrast. When I came to Tallahassee, it was.
Yeah.
It was huge. It was not good in all the sense of the way, but I still I will always say I'm Puerto Rican first. Mm-hmm. So does every Puerto Rican out there.
Sure.
We have our flags hanging in our cars.
Yeah.
We have I never not thought of myself as an American either. That was.
I mean, it's a pretty unique situation, right?
It is.
As a territory.
It's like golden. We are. Yeah. We are just. And I can relate to a lot of the other Hispanic issues. And, because living in Puerto Rico, somebody asked me a couple of days ago, I'm like, living in Puerto Rico is like living in Miami. Like, it's a big city, you've got the cars, you got everything. And, of course, where I lived in Puerto Rico, like, I didn't live in the mountains or anything like that. So where I lived, it was city life. Like, when I first got here to the United States, to Tallahassee, people were like, so do you guys live in tippies? And I was like, what?
Did you speak English from an early age?
Yeah. So I understood it. Back home, I went to private school, and all my books were in English. We had an English class from the minute you start school. Every single school over there has an English and a Spanish class. My mom was born and raised in New York, and then they came back. So I understood it. I just didn't, speak it. And so I would read the books.
But when you got home, it was all Spanish.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So, like, I would read the books in school, and the books were in English, and then I'd have to translate it because the tests were in Spanish,
Right.
So we would, that's how it was. So when I got here, you're a little bit timid, of course, and it takes a few months to learn it. And the Southern drawl was really difficult to understand.
But so that was a big deal to leave the island for you as a young teenager, right?
Man, you really are taking me back. Like, wow. Yes, January 14th, 1993.
Wow.
I was bawling the entire flight. I didn't want to leave my friends. I had thought I got in at a point in my, young life that, I have the group of people that I wanted to surround myself with, and I had really good friendships. I was in honor classes in school, so it was good. And then all of a sudden, you're going to take that away from me.
Right.
So it was hard.
Okay. I can imagine.
Yeah.
All right. So you leave Tampa after a short period. You end up in Tallahassee.
Yes.
And then you go straight to Lincoln High School.
I do, yeah.
So I'm sure that was another transition.
I'm going to puke.
So that was rough, right?
That was really rough. The black and white divide here is I don't even know what word to use, but
no, this was pre-Childs Lincoln.
Oh,
right?
100%.
Yeah, way before. So
this is 1993.
Right. So there was Killearn kids coming to Lincoln. There were kids who lived more right in the neighborhood, and so there was a lot of black and white diversity, right? But not a lot of other kind of diversity. Is that?
I think there was like 6 of us,
Okay. Yeah.
6 Hispanics. My brother, myself, are the family that we knew. There was 3 kids of theirs, and he's still my best friend. And I think there was 2 more.
But community was tough. I
Yeah,
mean, finding friends.
It was. It was interesting. God, I don't even know how to say this. That doesn't sound horrible, but the white people embraced me. The black girls hated me. The black men wanted to date me. Like, it was tough. And
those two things, were they correlated as far as why one group didn't like you and the other one
I couldn't
did?
understand it because back home, my mom her complexion is white. She dyes her hair blonde. So my dad was, the mixed one. My so my best friend back home was blonde hair, green eyes. And then I just didn't, there was no divide, at least the way I grew up. There really wasn't too much divide in that way. But here it was like, no, like it is strictly, here's this line and you don't cross over. So that was tough.
So you had to choose? I mean,
I
where did you
don't
fit
think
into
so.
that?
And then the other part is me being Hispanic, right? Like, our culture is completely different than here. I'm very lovey-dovey, touchy-touchy, like kisses, hugs, like, And so I was being called names, and like I was being called a flirt, and I didn't even know what a flirt was.
Oh, right.
And so I was like, what is that?
Right. You're being too friendly, too touchy.
Yes. And I'm like, hey, what's up? So I'm the same with everyone. So it was tough. It took me, I would say, probably several years to say, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to be who I am. And, I'm just, that's it. There's nothing else I can do because I can't, they obviously don't understand that there's different cultures and different ways of doing things, and that's okay. So I'll just be who I am.
Right.
And that's what I do.
I was a band person in high school, and so in groups like that has a tendency to break down those kind of barriers. If everybody's working towards something together, nobody cares if your trombone player is black or white or whatever. It's everybody's working towards something. Did you find community in any organizations or clubs or anything?
No, so a couple of things. One of the biggest things, so when I got into Lincoln High School, there was a couple friends that I was like, okay, this kind of works. But then on the weekends, everyone wanted to drink, and that was foreign to me. I'm like, oh, this is not what I want to do. And I never did. I never went to a drinking party or any of that kind of stuff. It just didn't interest me in any way, shape, or form. I enjoyed working out. I enjoyed being active. I enjoyed hanging out with friends. I enjoyed dancing, which, that was another issue. But
because you danced in a different way.
Because I dance, yeah. Like, I can dance without alcohol. Woo, what a concept. It's in my veins. Like, right. I feel the music. Right. When I try to teach people, I'm like, just close your eyes. I was like, don't you feel it? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I feel it. So I didn't really have that. I hung out with friends that didn't do those things, basically.
Okay.
And then I got pregnant. So I didn't really have the opportunity or time, because I was when I got there, it was probably my sophomore / going into junior year. And my senior year, I was pregnant. So I didn't really was part of it too much.
So that's obviously a big point in your life to be pregnant as a high school senior. So how did that impact your trajectory and your goals and what you were, how did you deal with that curveball?
Every day. No.
Did you stay in school?
Oh, hell yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So that was, it was interesting because my mindset has always been like, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to do this. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, oh, okay, so I have an obstacle. This is my obstacle.
Right.
Now, my mom saw it differently. So I didn't even tell my mom I was pregnant until I was pretty pregnant. I was able to hide it, for lack of a better word. I wasn't showing as much. And then all hell broke loose. I got kicked out of my house. I got sent back to Puerto Rico. I had to come back. And so I've been on my own since I was 16. I, for her, I remember sitting down with her and she was like, oh, you're not going to go to school anymore. And I'm like, says who? Like, that was not even a thought.
Yeah. Not
to go to school or to forgo it or to not continue. So I didn't understand that. And I said, why wouldn't I go to school? So I just have a kid. Like, it's okay. So
I assume you didn't get a lot of support from the father?
No, I did.
You did?
100%.
Oh, good. Okay.
100%. That was another distinction. Like, no, we were together for a couple of years. We were pretty much forced to be together. Wow, you're really getting into some stuff here.
So you didn't have to walk through all of that completely by yourself?
No. Only about 3-4 years of it we were together. I think Nikki was probably 4 or 5 when we were not together anymore.
Okay.
Because
that's, imagine you were pretty scared. I know you were determined, but there had to be some fear of at least the future, right?
No. I'm looking at you asking me this question, and I was like, no, I wasn't scared of that. I didn't. My mom was a single mom. Every woman that I knew was a strong single woman. I didn't think about that, actually.
Okay. I would just think as a kid, because you're a kid.
I'm a kid, but I'm a smart kid. Obviously not smart enough not to get pregnant, but
right.
I had a good head on my shoulders. Okay. Yeah. I wasn't scared of it.
So you're ready to take this on.
I'm ready to take it on. Like, bring it, you know?
I don't want to skip over a couple details you threw out there. So you were sent to Puerto Rico?
Oh, yeah. So I got kicked out, and then she got mad. And
while you were still pregnant?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And then, she sent me back to Puerto Rico, and then I was with my grandma, and I was like, hey, grandma, I want to go to school. Like, if I stay here in Puerto Rico, this is not the same.
Right.
Like, I live in Tallahassee. It is the easiest place to work, take care of a kid, and go to school because everything's within basically almost walking distance. So if I'm going to do it, this is the city where I need to do it.
Right.
So I'm going to can you help me get back? And then, there was a lot of drama between, what my mom was saying and, what the reality of it was and that kind of stuff. And so then my grandma believed in me. My grandma's like, okay. So she helped me and my uncle, and she helped me get back here. It's a lot. Like, my mom wanted to take my kid away, so the only way to emancipate myself and not lose my child was to marrying Nikki's dad. So then I had to do that. So there was a lot that went in there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, A, no one's taking my kid away. And B, I'm gonna do this. Like, at that point, I always wanted to be a physician, like both of my parents were, but you just pivot. That's not an option anymore because I remember how hard it was for my mom, to be a physician, to be a surgeon, and to take care of the kids, also known as she did, and my grandma did.
Right.
And when I think I was in third grade when she had to go to New York for a year or something. So I didn't want to do that for my kid. Like, I always had, okay, I'd see the behavior and it's like, okay, don't do that. Do something different instead.
To recognize it and decide, am I going to continue it or change?
Correct. Right. So from a young age, of course I've made many mistakes, but I'm like, okay, that doesn't look like a good idea. Let's pivot. Whether my mom was doing it or my grandma was doing it or whoever was doing it.
Right.
But, so then I got here and, I had my child and, I went to school. Like, I got accepted into Florida State, which was huge. And Nikki, my baby girl, would sometimes be in class with me. She celebrated one of her birthdays in Barry Solomon's advertising class. And the whole class sang happy birthday to her.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So was your plan always to go to FSU? Is that the school? Was it convenient because it was here in town?
It was convenient.
Yeah.
I didn't really have a plan on which school to go to, but I made my uncle super proud, and he's like my dad, because I didn't realize that he wanted to go to that school, but it was an all-women's school back then. When I got in, he was super proud.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I, those things that I don't think about daily.
Right. And you studied communications.
Communication with business.
And while you were in college, you were working at Publix?
I was.
Okay.
I worked at Publix for sure the whole time, but there was times that I worked at Publix, I worked for the state, I had an unpaid internship, and at that point, my daughter's dad and I were no longer together, so I was working.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I'm a Publix girl
yeah,
for life.
So what did you do at Publix?
I got to be office staff, which is the women in the office or the people in the office. So I started as a cashier.
Yeah.
I think I started with I want to say it was $5.10 an hour, maybe $4 something.
Yeah.
I just remember going to the Bahamas, and this was impactful to me. And I couldn't afford the Oreo cookies by the hour. The price of the Oreo cookies over there were more expensive more than I made in an hour.
Right.
And that not only resonated with me, but that's how I taught my children how to think about money.
Right.
I like the people there. I met great friends, still friends till this day with some of them. Same with some of the managers. Till this day, I get recognized at Publix.
Really?
Because apparently I don't age.
That's a good quality, I guess, right?
Yeah. So thank you, Mom. So they're like, God, how you used to work here or there? I'm like, oh, yeah. Actually, the customers. So I used to work at the one on Mahan, which is no longer there.
Right.
The one where Big Lots used to be. And then I transferred to Pensacola, the older one, not the new one that they have there right now.
Club Pub.
You know it.
Yeah. That one has a reputation.
Yes. I will say the times that I didn't have my daughter, that she was with her dad, I would go out. And again, I never drank, so that's not my thing. I would go out. The club closes at 2, right? Well, not the Hispanic one, because then you go to Atlantis till 4.
Wow.
They couldn't serve alcohol, which, again, I didn't care. It was just,
Right.
so then I'm out there till 4. I had to work at 7:30. So then we would go out because my friends, I was driving them around, and then I would go home, shower, and then zoom down Tennessee Street at 7:30.
Start your shift.
Start my shift, yeah. But I met great people there. I enjoyed it. I loved it. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about leadership and management. And again, it was looking into the things that, that doesn't make sense. Let's not do that when I'm in that position.
Yeah.
I was able to do a lot of that.
Using everything as a learning opportunity?
Yeah. Oh, Erwin would be so proud of hearing you say that.
All right. So you graduate and then you start an insurance job at Brown & Brown, right?
No, before that. So I graduate and I don't know anybody, because here I am thinking this degree is going to take me farther. Well, it's about who you know.
It is.
And it took me many years to learn that. I had no idea. Because remember, all my friends were at Club Pub. What did they do when they graduated?
They left.
They left. So I was here alone. My mom had left. Like, I had no network. I didn't, my relationship with my mom was not solid. I knew no one. So I'm like, oh, this degree is not the golden ticket. Like, wait, what?
Yeah,
so,
not by itself.
Yeah,
Right.
I need more stuff. So I started working at a radio station, Cumulus Broadcasting.
Okay.
Yeah, down Tharp. So I worked there for, I think, almost a year. And oof.
And what were you doing there?
Account executive.
Okay.
You're just selling ad
time.
Yeah, selling ad time, and I hated it. I didn't enjoy it. I met good people again. And again, it was such a learning opportunity, like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. You could see people that had been in the industry for a while and that they were, either some were super happy, some were not. You could see the people that were in drugs. Like it was a lot. And that's when that whole black and white divide came in again. I sat down with my boss at the time, which I believe he's passed away now. And he said to me, so I was dealing with the urban stations. And he said to me, I hired you to get the white men. And I didn't know how to take that other than I'm out of here. It's like, you're pretty, you're this. I hired you to get the white men to sell to these stations. And I was like, what in the hell is this?
Yeah, I can't believe somebody would say that to you.
Oh, 100%. So I didn't know how to take that. There were instances in there that again, there was a black and white team. It was tough. Anthony, who also died, unfortunately, he took me under his wing and he helped me. But when this guy said that to me, I was like, wait, what? I don't think so. So I made a mistake because I quit, but within 24 hours I quit. I had kind of made a few comments to some of the other people that sell, and I was like, one was black and another one was Hispanic, and I was like, what does this mean? Like, I'm 21 years old. I still am not understanding the cultural divide here. I was in college, while in college, I had a lot of diversity. So I wasn't in the real world, for lack of a better word.
Right.
And I just quit.
Yeah.
And it was a stupid decision because I had a kid to take care of,
Yeah, but you don't want to be in that environment.
I don't, but I learned a lot from that environment. And from there, as a matter of fact, the reason I ended up at Brown & Brown was because I started making connections and learning what networking was at that environment. I remember this girl that came in to show us the sales software. And I kind of clung on to her. I was like, hey. And she's the one that pretty much taught me about relationships and networking. And I'm like, okay. And that kind of comes naturally to me. I'm a friendly person.
Yeah.
I have no problem saying hello to people. One of interesting enough, because I ended up jobless, homeless, and carless that same time period. And that was a summer because my kid was with her dad.
So what did you do?
So I had a few weeks to figure out what to do.
Yeah.
My mom, my mom's relationship and I has been back and forth. So I had moved out of my apartment with my brother, and she said, oh, well, come live with me for a little bit and that's fine. Well, no, she didn't really mean that.
Okay. Yeah.
So then what did I do? So what I learned from the radio stations, from those people, one of my accounts co-signed an apartment for me. And he was a young kid. And he said, don't screw me over. And I would never co-sign for anyone.
Right.
And I said, I won't let you down. I saw Brown and Brown as another of those, when I'm in a position of leadership, management, power, whatever you want to call it, these are the things to note for. Don't do this, don't do that. So and I met good people along the way as well.
Right.
So, but I wouldn't go back to insurance.
No, but it was a good job and met your needs at the time.
It did. I mean,
right?
I was able to buy the house that I'm still in
Right.
through that job. I mean, I took advantage of the Great Recession? Is that what they...
In like 2008,
Oh,
2009?
I took advantage of
Yeah.
that because when I left Publix, I had been vested. So they give you stock if
Right.
you work a certain number of hours. So I worked for 5 years. I was vested and I had, I don't know, $3,000 or something like that. And I remember talking to my daughter's godmother's brother. And he was into real estate. And I said, hey, I have this money. What do I do? And he said, put it in real estate. So I was 25 when I bought my first house.
That's an awesome time to buy real estate if you didn't have real estate.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Let me tell you. And it was great because I don't know. I feel like I blacked out completely because I don't remember where I got this shift of all of a sudden, I'm going to do real estate. And I think it was between my friend Jim that encouraged me, my girlfriend Sarah, who's still my girlfriend till this day, and we are buying houses together.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I call it my big house, but I buy a townhome, and then I buy the townhome next door to the townhome, and then I buy a beach house, and then I buy my big house, all making less than $40,000 a year.
Yeah. But that was the right time. The bubble had burst. Prices were way down.
No,
right?
It was before it burst.
It was before.
I took advantage of what the banks were doing as an advantage to me.
Oh, I got it. So you were able not the best lending practices.
Well,
allowed
actually, I was one of those. I remember them trying to give me $1 million loan. I was like, that's stupid.
They were just throwing money at people.
But I knew better.
Right. So you didn't.
I know money.
Right.
I had
You didn't take more than you could
Heck
handle.
no.
Yeah.
I was like, there's no way. And I remember signing the first piece of paper, and they were like, okay, this is a variable interest rate. And I said, what's the worst case scenario? And they said 9%. I said, I need you to put the worst case scenario with this principal amount. What is it going to be?
Right.
I said, okay, I can still handle that. All right, moving on. And that's kind of how I did it. Like in my head, that didn't make any sense. Like the people that were like, oh, my income will freaking triple in 6 months. No, I knew that.
Right.
I knew better. And I'm very, very conscientious of money. I mean, I've had to raise a child on my own. I have to take care of my own. So I just took advantage of the situation
and used it
to
wisely.
my favor. Yeah.
Right. So when the recession did hit, you didn't go underwater.
Nope.
You were good.
Nope. I held on. I still have those properties. I still live in that big house.
Yeah. I want to step back for a second. Why did you decide to stay in Tallahassee? After you were done with school, you could have gone anywhere, done anything. What made you want to stay here?
I could have without a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So all the friends that I had that left, they went back to family. Or they went with the financial support of family. Right. I didn't have that.
Right.
I had to move somewhere and get the job. And back then, it wasn't as easy to get a job outside of the city you were in. You either had to move. And I did. I did consider it. I looked into, North Carolina. I looked into Atlanta. I looked into Orlando. But I was not going to sacrifice my daughter. So I just stayed and made it work. And then after a while, I started discovering all the things that Tallahassee had. And I started enjoying it and things like that. It's so ironic because I never in a million years thought I would ever lived in Tallahassee, right? Like till this day, people are like, why are you there?
Right.
Why? I mean, look at you. You're Hispanic. You're this. You're alive. You're this. You're full of life. Like, why are you there? And I'm like, I have learned to love this place.
All right. And during this general time period, you did earn an MBA.
I did.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your motivation to do that?
I don't think I knew better. I think it was just, checking the box, just trying to get better jobs, just trying to,
Because that's not easy to get. I mean, that's a big deal.
And it is. I guess looking back, it is. And I wanted it to be one of the top 25 schools at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And Florida State was one of them, but I didn't want to go back to Florida State because I'd already done Florida State, right? I was like, let me do something different.
Sure.
And at that point, I was working full time, taking care of my kid, and I had tried going back to school several times with a master's in communications. Wasn't really liking it. I tried med school. Not admissions person, but the counselor said, you have too many distractions in your life, also known as my kid. So, yeah, it's kind of
an odd judgment to make for you.
Oh, it's not, because I got the same judgment at Lincoln High School from the counselor when I got pregnant. Your life is over. Just go ahead and get your
as far as going to college or even finishing school?
Oh, yeah. Ms. Duncan was like, your life is over. You're never going to amount to anything. Go get a GED. I'm like, what is wrong with these people?
She literally said that to you?
She literally said that to me. My daughter didn't find out when she went to Lincoln. I was like, no, I'm not going to tell you who had said that. But now it's public. Who said, it doesn't matter. But I got told that, and I was like, that's what I was told. But to me, those things don't crush me. I'm like, oh, it's just, okay, whatever. You think that way. I'll make it work. I'll figure it out. So I got into Colorado State, and they would send us the recorded actual classrooms it was like Netflix. It was like the DVD.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like that. I would get the DVD. I would pop it in. I would listen to the class. Sometimes they had it live if they could. And then you had people all over the world in the remote part. So we would have groups, and I completed it.
In 2005, you meet a guy named Erwin Jackson, and you start working at Jackson Properties.
I do.
So?
Does anybody know who Erwin Jackson is?
I think most of our listeners will know who Dr. Jackson is.
Love him.
So you've served many roles there over the last 17 years or so. So tell us about your job, about Jackson Properties, and what it is like to work for Erwin Jackson.
So I kind of tell people, I was like, I just run Erwin's empire, right?
Yeah.
That's what I do. I don't have titles. We don't really have titles. And we can, whatever, I tell people, I was like, if you want to call me CEO, VP, business manager, I don't really care. I said, the description of my job is from maggots to bankers and politicians. Anywhere in between.
Right.
I do it all. All the sales or the marketing or the outside stuff or the maintenance or the contractors, everything and anything.
So how did you get started? Was it because you owned property and you kind of understood the world? Or how did that happen?
I got so lucky. I answered an ad in the paper. Back then, I'd have to go to the interviews with straight hair. Again, go back to the divide.
You do. You're straightening your hair.
I'm straight. Well, not every day, just for interviews.
I mean, for interviews.
Just for interviews, yeah.
Because you can't look too Hispanic?
Because people don't know what the hell I am. And then, it used to make people uncomfortable. It just was easier. I hate to say this word, but I could pass. So in either way, I've been in situations where I'm like, oh my God, those people have no idea who I am, or like what,
So like passing as like a tan white person?
That I remember this guy telling me that. I just thought you were the white girl with a tan.
Okay. You had applied in a newspaper ad, because you had owned some properties and you understood what was going on.
So he told me later on that there was another girl that was, because I remember I was coming from insurance. I've never, done anything.
On paper, you wouldn't be super qualified
exactly.
for this.
On paper, nothing. But then, in my resume, it didn't even have in there that I was an investor, that I owned at that time 4 houses or something like that. Like, that's my personal stuff, right?
Right.
When him and I started talking, and I said, oh, yeah, I understand. So then I shared about my properties, my rentals, and how I got it. And then later on, apparently there was someone else that was more qualified, but it takes a different stomach to be a real estate investor, and I have that stomach.
Right.
So that's why he was like, no, you know what it takes because you have it. and I've been with him ever since.
Right.
Yeah. I started at the Basing Street office, 714 Basing Street, and then now we're in Jackson Bluff.
So for people who don't know, tell us what Jackson Properties is all about. What does the company do?
So we do off-campus student housing. So Erwin has, I call him the pioneer of student housing here in Tallahassee because he's had this since 1977, I believe. And he started purchasing houses and renting it to students. So a lot of the houses in the airport, Mayhew, Ackermeyer, and even what used to be called El Rancho is now Campus Circle, he bought and renovated them and made it better and just started renting it to students. So now we have townhomes, apartments, duplexes, but the things that we have the most is houses.
We're going to leave your vocational experiences now and move into some other areas of your life that I think you care about. Yes. And one of them is you are a distance runner and triathlete.
Yay!
Which I know is not something one does casually. So
wait, why not?
That sounds really hard. That's why. So tell me about how you got started in being a triathlete.
Wow. So I've always worked out. I want to say I started in second grade, maybe first grade, working out. My mom took me to the gym at the Ritz-Carlton in Puerto Rico. Like it was next to us at the rooftop, and we were having an aerobics class. And oh my God, like I just got chills because till that day I've been high on life, you know? So when I was in college, I started running, and it took me 5 years to learn how to breathe through running because I would hold my breath and, play tennis also. But I was just always really active. And all of my friends had left because remember, everybody leaves Tallahassee, right? All my friends had left. I was working. I was taking care of my kids. And I was like, hey, what else do I need to do? And I started running long distance. I started getting associated with the Golfins Track Club. I started meeting more people and enjoying that.
There's a great community there, right?
A huge, amazing, incredible, supportive, community. Have absolutely enjoyed every bit of it. I've been distanced from it the past few years because I've just been running on my own and just life, in general. But that was, it was just great. So I started kind of combining my love for travel and marathons. So I would go places and then run a marathon, So, but then I realized that I'm not really built for long distance running all the time. I'm not a skinny, very skinny.
It was hard on your body.
Oh yeah, it was hard on my body. After I had Emma, my hips move a little bit, so I can only do so much. So then I said, okay, well I know how to swim and bike. Let me see. Mm-hmm. I was already doing marathons. So to me, my logical, maybe not so logical thinking was, well, why am I going to start with a sprint in triathlons? Let me start with a half Ironman, which is, 1.2 mile swim, 56
So a regular triathlon wasn't going to be hard enough for
Correct.
you.
I mean, I was already running 4 hours. Mm-hmm. So why am I going to go run for 30 minutes? That's not going to work for me. I need long distance. I need, long term here. So I signed up for the 70.3 in Panama City Beach. And I remember the people, like when I went there, some of the people were like, wait, what? Why?
So you hadn't biked or swam competitively?
Heck no.
Yet?
No.
Okay.
The last time was at the YMCA in Puerto Rico.
But you're like, I got this.
I got this. Like, I know how to do this. I definitely know how to bike. I mean, everybody knows how to bike once you know.
How hard can it be?
Exactly, right? Or if going back into it, it's great.
Yeah.
And then I just started swimming. I mean, and it turns out that I'm above average in all three of them. So so that's kind of how I started. And then that community grew and grew. And that's when really my roots got settled in Tallahassee. Like when I started with the Golfins Track Clubs and the Tri Club and meeting all those people. And that's when I really, 10 years later, began to truly appreciate and have a love for this community.
You're also a writer and a speaker.
Yeah.
So tell me about, you have 2 published books.
I do.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about those.
So I have been writing since I was in Puerto Rico. So I was probably 11 or 12.
Okay.
And I didn't, I guess they call it journaling now. And, back then it was diaries. And, and I fell in love with Pablo Neruda. He's a poet, and Poema número 20, so poem number 20. And I remember reading that poem over and over, and my friends were into it as well. And I was like, oh, I could do that. Well, I figured I could never, but
Right.
I can't. I can't do poetry. I listen to enough Ricardo Arjona ballads, then I will. But
right.
So I started writing, and never thought of it. So my whole life, I have written. I take notes. Like you see me here with a notebook.
Yep.
Carried everywhere. The beauty of the cell phone, you have notes that you can carry everywhere. And then, at some point in my life, actually it was Ebe. I never ever was going to share my writings. For many years, my friend Curtis told me to do it. And I was like, no, man, I'm good. Like, This is something I do in the dark. This is for me. This is my life. This is observation of the world. This is how I process. This is how I heal. This is how I grow. This is how I learn. And then Ebe at the College of Communication, the assistant dean out there, when I first met him, he looked at me up and down. He said, you got a story to tell. You got 6 months to give me a script.
So he just read you from just...
I had never met the man.
Oh, really?
Never.
Right.
And I was like, wait, what? How do you know I write? And he was like, just give it to me in 6 months. And I was like, all right. So I took a little longer. I think it was 6-9 months or something. And I met with him afterwards, and I said, here you go. Here's the draft. So that's kind of how that started. It was totally not something that I thought I was going to do. I kind of shared a lot of the stories growing up, which a lot of them I just shared here with you, actually.
Right. Yeah.
It was, a lot of the coming from Puerto Rico and navigating through here and being, I like saying becoming part of the 2%, because less than 2% of teenage moms that get a graduate degree, less than 2% of people do triathlons and Ironmans and marathons, less than 2%, so it was like I am in a very, very minute.
Right.
Yeah.
Not 2% of single moms do triathlons.
Right.
2% of people in general.
People in general.
Right. Yeah.
So people in general. And then, so I remember doing that about myself. Like I would look up the statistics, the percentage of people that do this, the percentage of people that do that. And I'm in that 2%. Which was crazy to think, right? Good, whether that be good or bad, I think it's good, or I hope it's good. It's turned out to be good for me. But it was becoming that part of that 2% and raising my daughter, and then having the jobs, and then having the connections, and it just.
What was the first book? What was the name of it?
It was Own Your Fire.
Okay.
And so I published it for a short period of time, and then it was one of those things that it was just putting my learnings from my past, the challenges that I had with my mom, the challenges that I have as a mom, the challenges that I had with the jobs,
Yeah.
And then the looking forward. And then the second one that Eve was like, you need to have it by March 4th, was Know Your Worth.
Okay.
And it's kind of helping women, and actually turns out that a lot more men than women read my books.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's crazy.
We have worth issues too.
I know. I honestly, I never thought that I was writing for men.
Yeah. So we've talked, quite a bit about Nikki and your
my big baby girl.
Yeah, your big who's not a baby anymore.
She'll be 27.
Yeah. But you also have 2 other children.
I do.
And so we really haven't discussed your life during that time and how they came about. And
well, we all know how they came about.
Okay. We know technically how they came about. But what your life was like then, and, we haven't filled in that gap of your life with your 2 other children. So how does all that fit in?
So when I was working at Jackson Properties, I think it was like a year in or something like that, I started dating, and then, like a year or two after, probably about a year after, then I had Gabe. And totally unplanned, that's my precious boy. I always, how the kids always fight about who's the favorite child. Mm-hmm. And nobody can give in on that. Everybody has, a strength and weaknesses. Sure. And I'm always like, well, you're my favorite boy.
Yeah, you can get away with that.
Yeah, I can get away with that. And so I had him. And then 2 years later, I had Emma. And so I was in a relationship with their dad for, 9 years or so. Mm-hmm. And it ended. We went our separate ways. It just wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't where I wanted to be. It wasn't who I wanted to be with.
And is passing down your culture and heritage to your children, is that a priority for you?
100%. They all know Spanish.
Yeah.
I didn't speak to any of them in English for the first 2 years of their life.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And it was hard. Here in Tallahassee, it was hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would do it, and we would get kind of outcasted at the playgrounds or things like that because, people just assume. I remember I was at Lowe's one time speaking to my son. He was about 2, and this lady was like, "Where are we, in Cuba now?" And I was like, "Actually, we're bilingual. I just want him to learn another language as well." This is the kind of crap that that people don't think about, but I've lived it. And the cashier was like, "What just like what?" I'm like, and I'm not going to get in a fight because I'm not going to be the crazy Puerto Rican that's going to start a fight with my son in front of me. Like, I'm not that person, You go do you, and I go do me, which is I will teach my children 2 languages. Yeah. And they know 2 languages. I speak to them in Spanish.
I would give anything to be able to speak Spanish at this point, but
I know.
I'm too old to learn it now.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not. And then the music, I've passed down the music. We love listening to Mark Anthony. Now, they don't listen to it on their own, but they listen to it with Mommy. I put the radio station that I used to listen to in Puerto Rico on Saturdays at the house. So I've definitely passed down some of that. And it's
dancing too?
Oh, hell yeah. I taught my boy how to dance salsa and bachata, and I was like, you will appreciate this and you will thank me later.
Oh, yeah.
Believe me.
Yes. This will be a good tool to have in your toolbox at some point.
Absolutely. And there used to be points and times where they were like, Mommy, if they wanted something from me, they knew how to get it. They just either A, speak Spanish, and B, do you want to dance? What do you? Of course I want to dance.
Right. That's funny.
There's all these videos of the Puerto Rican, Hispanic mom cooking and dancing. And Gabe is like, yeah, that's you.
How old are they now?
So Gabe is 14, so he's getting ready to go to freshman year at McClay.
Right.
And then Emma is 12, and so she's going to be in 7th grade at McClay.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
and they're sassy, and they're just as tall as me now, and Emma is sassy as can be. So I say I'm energetic, right? Right. And everybody's always like, can you bottle that? And I was like, I did. I made Emma. So if you think I'm energetic, wait till you meet Emma.
Right. You've served on many boards over the years, focused largely on running and supporting women and children, or sometimes both combined.
Yes.
You also participated in Leadership Florida and Leadership Tallahassee. So what stands out to you in those experiences?
Oh, man, you just saw my grin, right? Because Leadership Tallahassee came to me after I directed the Tallahassee Marathon and Half Marathon. That was such a huge thing. I've always been doing my thing, but student housing is a very niche thing. Nobody really knows what you do. I do well, and I don't really care for accolades or going into nationals or any of that kind of stuff. But when I did the Tallahassee Marathon, for lack of a better word, it just catapulted me into this community. And my handprint is still on Duval Street, with that finish line, that printed finish line. And I still look at it and just get so giddy. But once I did that, there were several people that came up to me and was like, you need to apply for this. And I hate to say it, I didn't even know what it was at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I did, because I've met people that have been great and influential for my life. I think everybody says that. Oh, you'll have friends for nah,
Right. It'll be nice for a while, but then I'll move on.
But that wasn't it for me. I literally was texting one of them yesterday.
Yeah.
And I've had really good relationship with some of the guys there. And I had, I've ended up working with some of them. They're doing projects for each other and things like that. And it was just about expanding my network. Last night, I was writing down in the middle of the night, contemplate the journey, like just enjoy the journey, enjoy the process.
Right.
And I think I sometimes forget to do that. I try to get to the destination, whatever that goal is.
Yeah.
And I'm reminding myself, no, sit there during that journey just a little longer and learn, which I think I have done in terms of like learning things in there, but I haven't appreciated throughout the way.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Sure.
So
yeah.
That was last night at 1:00 in the morning, my friend.
It's fresh in the journal. All right, 2 more questions.
Sure.
All right, Ely, looking back, what is the one thing or person that you think changed or altered the trajectory of your life to this point?
My daughter, Nikki. I would not be who I am without her. I would not. I had all the drives and all that stuff, but man, did I try to make sure that girl was succeeded and wasn't part of a statistic or wasn't what everyone else told me she or I were going to be here in this community. I mean, that's my big baby girl. Like there's no favorites. There's a different kind of love and appreciation, and just I'm such a proud mom, and she has, and I still, like this weekend I told her, I said, what you have accomplished, most 40-year-olds don't get to do. And I think part of that is attributed to what I was able to do for her and how hard I fought to make sure that I made it, and then I made it for her. So I would say hands down, Nikki.
That's great. My final question, this podcast is called How I Got Here. So we've talked about all the things that have happened in your life to get to this point. Where do you think here might be for you in 3 to 5 years from now?
Oh my God. So I'm actually listening to the book Designing Your Life.
Okay.
And this morning in the trail I was thinking it's life number 1, life number 2, and life number 3. 3 to 5 years from now, I still see myself at Jackson Properties. I still see I'm there for life. Sorry, Erwin.
I'm sure he's okay with
I know.
that.
I think he wants me there. But I still see me there. The 5 years, at that point, I'll be almost 50. All my kids would be 18 at the point. And that's kind of where now I really get to have a second opportunity at life in general. And to, I want to travel a little bit more. I definitely want to continue writing. I'm enjoying my life right now. So I can, whatever comes at me in 5 years, I'm sure that just like anything else, I'm going to say, bring it, let's tackle it. I am in a good place with everything, family, friends, relationships, romantic life, and everything that I just want that to keep growing and to keep learning from it, So it's not just all good. And those bad moments, low moments I want to learn more from that, whatever those may be.
Thanks for listening to the show. You can subscribe at Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, please leave us a review. It really does make a difference. Thanks to my amazing staff at Fiore Communications, who pick up the slack while I'm working on these podcasts, and to Troy Bloom for composing our theme music. You can hear more of Troy's creations on Facebook and Instagram at Troy Bloom Music. To connect with the podcast or suggest a future guest, follow us on social media or email us at podcast@fiorecommunications.com.